Today on Class Action, not so golden after all. The author of a new book about California reflects on the rise and fall of our once celebrated public education system. He's going to take us through the missteps and help us chart a course to a better future. And then 21st century tools. San Jose Unified partners with software companies to leapfrog into the digital age. The superintendent is here to share his vision.
Business law.
And later, a woman who reads for those who can't. A Bay Area volunteer logs thousands of hours recording books for the blind. Hello and welcome to Class Action. I'm Jessica Aguirre, and my first guest this week is someone you well know, NBC Bay Area's political analyst Larry Gersten. Larry is also a professor of political science at San Jose State, and lately he has been crisscrossing the Bay Area doing lectures and public speaking engagements about a provocative new book that he wrote. Check out the title of this, Not So Golden After All, The Rise and Fall of California. And the book covers a lot of ground. We're talking state politics, infrastructure of California, housing challenges. But today, for this talk show, we're really going to focus on California's public education system. And Larry, the title itself is distressing, not so golden when we think of ourselves as the Golden State. But one of the things that you do in the book is you talk about the rise and the fall of education in California. And in myself reading this book, when I read about the rise of California, I think because I'm stunned to find out that California was considered one of the best public education systems in the country, and that was just last generation.
A role model, an absolute role model, K through 12, one of the best in the entire country. People were committed to paying for education, never a doubt, locally or statewide. And if you look at the university system, free public education, absolutely free for colleges and university students, simply because the state realized it was an investment they were making, and they wanted to get as many people in and out so that they would get good jobs and pay taxes and pay things back over and over.
I know in the book you reference it as the crown jewel. And it's stunning. So I guess my question to you is, how do you go just a generation ago from having the best public education system to now, my children are in public schools, and our anxiety as parents is, we're in one of the worst public education systems now. If you look at just the sheer numbers of where we are in terms of math scores, English scores, API scores, and worse, per pupil spending.
Yeah, and dropouts, of course. Dropout rates are horrendous. Not so much for whites. It's one of the things we chronicle in the book is it's whites versus non-whites. It's rich versus poor. There are all kinds of variables here that slam us in the face, Jessica. What we're really getting is a very uneven system. There are many people right now who live in places like Palo Alto or Atherton or Los Gatos or Saratoga or other places. They're fine, thank you. They're absolutely fine. But you go to places like the east side of Santa Clara County, go into the valley, the Central Valley, and you're talking about, or Oakland, you're talking about horrendous dropout rates, performances on tests that are absolutely unbelievable. We rank now 50th in class size, 50th in class size, right. 48th in per pupil spending. Overall, it's a disaster. Are there pockets of success and affluence? You bet. But overall, no, not so good.
So a lot of people say, and you say this in your book, that one of the big challenges California has, and you touched upon that, is our unique population. We have a very high immigrant population, and that has lowered the ability. You've got a lot of English learners. How does that impact what we're doing today, where our funds are going, and the ability for us to be able to manage our schools?
Well, that's a great place to start. We've got an awful lot of English learners because we've had so many immigrants into the state, which of course enrich the state in many ways. But at the same time, it takes an average of 5 to 7 years for someone with another language to really master English. Now, state law allows 1 year extra funding. That's it. 1 year extra funding. After that, you're on your own. Some districts can cobble together a little bit more money, others don't. These kids are not ready to go after that year. And so they begin maybe in the same grade, but they fall quickly behind.
And has that been impacted by bilingual education? We outlawed that?
It's not, we outlawed it after a year. In other words, everybody has to be mainstreamed after a year. Well, guess what? They're not ready to be mainstreamed. And so we kind of force a round peg into a square hole. Well, you know what? It's never worked, and it doesn't work now. So maybe we're saving some money in the short run by not allowing more funding for bilingual education to get everybody up to speed on their own terms and time frame. But in the end, it's costing phenomenal amounts with these dropouts who, of course, maybe go into crime, who wind up, instead of a few $1,000s
more.
Paying
for prison instead of school.
Right. Now it's $50,000 per prisoner.
Okay, so let's skip forward to higher ed because you talked about that. And again, when I read this in your book, and I was like, college was free? Yeah. Free? We're talking free. And you know, all we've seen in the last 5 years are mass protests at the UC schools because of the higher fees. I think in your book you said they've gone up more than 267% in terms of just in the last couple of years.
Right, just in the last few years. We are now at a point, interesting, remember, we had the marker of a free education system. We are now at the point where our higher education system really gets just a little bit above the national average in terms of dollars. That in itself doesn't mean a lot. What it does mean, however, is the rapid escalation that people have not been prepared for. Had we been moving up gradually over the years, it might have been something else. But to double it in 5 years, no, that is hard for anybody to swallow. And again, we're losing people from the system. Not to mention, in addition to losing people from the system, we've got 50, 60,000 kids in California who qualify, who aren't admitted because the system just can't accommodate them because it's so underfunded. And we're now taking kids from outside the state to come in their place because they're going to pay more.
All right, so let's talk about the Brown Initiative, because one of the things that we keep talking about, you know, schools right now have budgeted for the worst scenario because they don't know what's going to happen in November. Governor Brown has an initiative on the ballot, and so does Molly Munger. So there's two education initiatives. What do you think about those, and what don't people understand about what's going to happen if they don't pass?
Well, the initiative in itself, particularly the Brown and the Munger, but they both would raise phenomenal amounts of money. In Munger's case, almost all of it for education.
Like $10 billion,
and in Brown's case, most of it for education. Brown's initiative has got two parts to it. Mostly, it affects people $250,000 and more, higher income taxes, plus a small sales tax increase as well. Munger's is all income tax increases. But the key here is to plug the gap, this horrendous funding gap that we have, both at K through 12 and higher ed. The polls show that this is teetering. 52, 53% say right now they'd vote for it. Well, we know from the past that if you don't have closer to 60 for a money, for a money initiative, it fails. So what happens if it fails? We're talking about at least 3 weeks a year. 3 weeks a year where kids will not be going to school beyond all the time that they've already given up. Now, I want to tell you something. There are only 4 states right now who have less education time than we do. Not so golden.
Yeah,
all right?
Not so golden.
So you take 3 weeks more away from a state whose teachers haven't had the opportunity.
Tarnished.
Right, tarnished is right. So we're really talking about. But the problem is that the legislature and the governor over the years, you know, have been sort of like the boy who cried wolf too many times. And there's a good deal of skepticism among the public. Maybe this isn't such a problem either. Well,
it's going to be a problem. I know that you dedicated the book to your granddaughter. So when you look forward and you think about her getting into the public education system, what are your concerns?
I'm worried for her. I'm worried for her. I'm worried for all her toddler friends. My little granddaughter, Gia, she's 2 years old. What does she have to look forward to, you know, in a system that is the most crowded, that is almost the most underfunded at 48th, that has among the lowest test scores in the entire country? How will she and her friends come out of school and be competitive? It's all about competition right now. It's all about competing not only against other countries, but competing against the graduates from other states. So yeah, I think we need to really think about what we're giving the next generation. We've taken a lot. What will we give now down the road?
Thank you, Larry Gersten, educating us all each and every day that you're here with us at NBC.
Good to see you.
We're going to be right back with the superintendent of San Jose Unified, who is dreaming big with DreamBox.